Would you like to know what happens when the world fails a generation, including progressive movements like girl boss feminism? You get the pacifying rise of synthetic influencer drug-like products like Nara Smith. Since late 2022, the internet personality Nara Smith has skyrocketed to viral internet fame, growing over 440% on both Instagram and TikTok in just 6 months. Today, a 23-year-old woman is at the command of an online community of over 12 million followers across platforms. The idyllic trad world presented by Nara Smith is one of slow, simple living. It's a digital universe where a beautiful woman meets the love of her life and proceeds to find all the purpose and joy she needs within the confines of domesticity, stay-at-home motherhood, and marriage. This formula has turned Nara Smith into a role model and source of inspiration for a growing online community. However, it's also become highly controversial and turned her into a political target and alleged threat to Western-style democracy. Yet, despite the criticism, Smith's popularity continues to soar, particularly amongst Gen Z, which is the most progressive and woke generation to date. And amidst the backlash, and despite a cease and desist letter, Nara Smith has remained mostly silent. This silence has left many questioning not only her religious and political agendas, but also the authenticity of her online persona. The internet wants to know, who is this woman? Why is she so popular? Why do people love her? Why do people hate her? And most importantly, is she for real? In a post-truth era, being able to separate fantasy from reality can literally mean the difference between life and death. So I did some digging. And I'm here to report to you that the only thing real about Nara Smith might be the food she makes. Because as we'll see in this video, not even Nara Smith likely lives the life of Nara Smith. Welcome back to my bedroom. My name is Darla, but you can call me AD. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you don't, you can see yourself right out by that door. And then the other one. And then the other one, you got to make sure to relate on your way out because it's kind of fussy. Let's get started. But first, allow me to change this apron because if I'm not careful, I'm going to experience a wardrobe malfunction on camera. And you might want that, but I definitely do not. There you go. Much better. Much tighter. For how much of a next generation edgelord she's turned into, Nara Smith's beginnings in life were quite innocuous. Born on September 27, 2001 in Bloemfontein, South Africa, Nara Aziza Pelman Smith is the daughter of a German father and a Mosotho mother. She's also the eldest of 3 siblings. Shortly after her birth, her family relocated to Frankfurt, Germany, where she'd spend her formative years. This is where she'd become fully bilingual in German and English, and most relevant to the Nara Smith story, scouted as a model. At the age of 14, Nara Smith would be discovered through the We Love Your Jean campaign by IMG Models. And by the age of 18, she'd moved to Los Angeles, California to take her career to the next level. But to many internet sleuths, it doesn't seem like that ever actually happened. 7 months ago, CXRA321 posted in the subreddit LA Influencer Snark, anyone know anything about Nara Smith's modeling career? Despite her claim of starting modeling at 14 and getting a Milan runway job, there's no evidence like pictures or videos. The only thing I've seen is a few campaigns when she was pregnant or one with Rumble, Lucky, and Her, but that was ages ago. I want to know more about her beyond her marriage to Lucky Blue Smith. And in the comment section, aside from a few, I vaguely remember following her on social media and seeing her doing some kind of work early on in her career and name dropping a few couple potential campaigns. Nara's career prior to her viral internet fame is a bit of an enigma. You'll be truly hard pressed to find any records of projects, campaigns, or runway shows she's been in prior to her viral internet fame, which is odd and has led to speculation that she never really had a modeling career at all. It didn't have an opportunity to take off, possibly due to her early start at having children, which is notoriously bad for business. However, in our day and age, there's more than one way to be a model, and influencing is one of them. What we do know is that Nara Smith has been active on Instagram and has a documented history of doing the whole influencer thing since roughly 2019. Her early content has always been a vibe, something I'd describe as feeling like a comforting summer breeze in a sun-kissed tropical paradise, hashtag Pinterest aesthetic. Think bikini slays, pajamas in bed, golden hour just perfectly hitting her cheekbones, and existential musings like, does fate exist? Do you rather be free or totally safe? While this early strategy was definitely approachable and inviting, what it was not is something that would make her stand out in the hyper-competitive and oversaturated influencer space, let alone kickstart the revolution she did. To truly become an internet sensation, Nara needed an edge, like I need a sugar daddy. Another one. And she'd find her missing ingredient in a Tumblr era icon called Lucky Blue Smith. Lucky Blue Smith is a model, actor, and musician who rose to fame in the 2010s. Born on the 8th of June, 1998 in Spanish Fork, Utah, and into a big happy Mormon family, Lucky was scouted by someone called Alexis Borges of Next Models during a family trip to Los Angeles. Initially, it was Lucky's sister Daisy who had a modeling agency meeting, but the entire family attended and they were all signed, despite the agency not typically representing children. Because surprise, the gene pool, insane. As Lucky's longtime agent Mimi Yapor said, you know a star when you see one, and they were right. Lucky was signed at just 10 years old, and by 12 was shooting with Heidi Slimane for Vogue Japan. By 13, he started in a Gap campaign with his family, and by 14, he was featured in a Levi's campaign. Shortly after that, his agency would suggest he edge up his look by suggesting he dye his hair its now iconic peroxide blonde. This simple yet clever branding decision would literally change everything, and his career from that point on went boom. By 16, Lucky Blue Smith was doing campaigns for Tom Ford and Calvin Klein. He had been featured in magazines like Vogue, V-Man, GQ, and Harper's Bazaar. He was walking international catwalks for brands like Dunhill, Bottega Veneta, Fendi, Salvatore Ferragamo, Sacai, Kith, Armani, Chanel, Dolce & Gabbana. And by 17, he had already amassed 1.3 million followers on Instagram, which was an unheard of number for a male model at the time. For comparison, the highest earning male models at the time, Sean O'Prey and David Gandy, had 389,000 and 358,000 Instagram followers, respectively. At his peak, which is part of the problem, he peaked early in 2015-2016. Everyone wanted a piece of Lucky Blue Smith, including a very mean lesbian called Ellen DeGeneres. We're talking an army of thirsty female fans dubbed his Lucky Charms who follow him everywhere, in talks for a Kardashian-like reality show with his family. And with his family, he also had a band called the Atomics who were booked for a gig at Coachella. It was what we'd call a moment, but it was a moment that wouldn't last forever. Fortunately for Lucky, a pretty woman called Nara Pellman would be right around the corner, ready to give him a second breath of internet relevance. The lore behind Nara and Lucky's love story is that they knew of each other through the modeling world and social media. However, it would take Lucky quite some time before he decided to go in for the kill and slide into Nara's DMs on Instagram. They would exchange contact information, but at first the momentum was really hard to keep up because Lucky was a bad texter and Nara really wasn't feeling it. Eventually, Lucky Blue Smith would get Nara onto the phone, and cold, sporadic text messages would turn into the kind of lengthy, meaningful phone calls that see days turn into nights. They'd talk about their visions for the future, family, and unsexy yet important relationship building topics like finances. They would have their first in-person meeting in one of the fashion capitals of the world, Milan, and subsequently spend time in Australia together, which would only solidify their electric bond. On November 19th, my birthday, 2019, the couple would debut their relationship on Instagram with a sizzling bathroom selfie. Then, a few months after that, they'd announce their engagement. And then, in February of 2020, almost exactly 6 months after they first met, the couple would get married in a beachside ceremony covered by Vogue magazine. Nara would wear a modest Orsian iris gown, and Lucky, a baby blue suit with an even darker blue tie. The boy who stole my heart, Nara captioned on Instagram. I married my best friend today. Upon news of their union, someone on Instagram commented under one of Nara's posts, in all realness, be careful he doesn't knock you up and then decide to leave you for another. Good luck though. Well, who needs luck when you've got Lucky? The couple, who are both under 25, by the way, would proceed to have 3 children under 3. Rumble Honey, born on October 7th, 2020, Slim Easy, born on January 6th, 2022, and Whimsy Lou Smith, born on April 8th, 2024. Nara Smith is also the stepmother to Lucky's daughter, Gravity Blue, from his previous relationship with a model called Stormy Bree. When asked about her unconventional decision to have children so young, Nara claims that this was 100% her choice, and that under the influence of her father, who had regretted having children later in life, she had always wanted to be a young mom and get that out of the way. From that point on, And within the context of a digital world where everyone talks about the importance of decentering men, Nara Smith took the opposite approach by making her man her literal entire identity. Since debuting the relationship on Instagram, the couple's love story, eventual marriage, and building of a family have become cornerstones of Nara Smith's content strategy. She literally treats pregnancy reveals as product drops. On the 4th of December 2023, upon news of her most recent pregnancy, she'd make a post on Instagram captioning, Volume 3 coming next year. However, it would only be around 2022 when Nara Smith started experimenting with TikTok and discovered she had eczema and lupus that the influencer we know of today would finally catch her wind. Lupus is an autoimmune condition that can be triggered by certain foods or ingredients. Doctors often suggest adjusting one's diet in order to have more control over what sufferers put into their bodies. So while Nara had always loved cooking, after her diagnosis, she began experimenting in the kitchen and making her food from scratch. She'd also decide to start documenting her creations on TikTok. And around 2022, Nara Smith's content started shifting from mere aesthetic vibes to more practical but still vibey cooking vlogs. With time, and some argue content theft, Nara would eventually refine this formula and find the winning format she's famous for today, which goes a little something like this. My husband and toddlers asked for, insert meal here.
My husband was on his way out to get a cookies and cream soft serve.
And so I got started with it right away.
But I told him I'll just make it for him instead, so that's exactly what I did.
But instead of making the meal the time-efficient, normal way, she proceeds to make everything down to the ingredients from scratch in a process that many speculate must take her hours, if not days, to complete. And essential to the format/formula are a couple different components. A. She always prepares the meals in impeccable makeup and haute couture level styling. B. She executes her storytelling using soothing ASMR-like voiceovers. C. She will often push boundaries with cooking by opting for either creative, quirky, or straight-up rage/clickbait recipes. Think everything from bubblegum to Oreos, froyo, toothpaste, and even sunscreen, all made from scratch. It's a winning strategy that has propelled Nara Smith to viral internet fame, and in my opinion, allowed her to materialize a root concept initially pioneered by the likes of her husband. A little something called the Tradwife/girlfriend experience. So cute, so cute, so cute. Look at my baby, look at my baby, so cute. In his heyday, Lucky Blue Smith became a pioneer of what I will refer to as a parasocial relationship building social media branding strategy, often referred to as the boyfriend experience. It's a world where guys want to be you and girls want to date you, and everything you post serves to add to that fantasy. For example, at the time, Lucky Blue Smith was known to regularly flirt and engage with his fans in the comment section. He would also provide them with seductive content and captions that would read as choose your own adventures, in which the main character are you, the bae, and Lucky, the boo. And Lucky kind of holds your hand through various quests, often shirtless and next to seagulls. And the best part about this is that these digital adventures could materialize into real-life interactions with Lucky Blue Smith. Lucky became known for spontaneously announcing meet and greets on social media with his fans around the world. This strategy was calculated, and it was pivotal to Lucky's success and in crafting the persona and developing the cult following he has today. However, Lucky's viral internet fame and career kind of hit a ceiling, like what happens to women after they have children. And as a result, it's a concept that, from my perspective, wasn't ever able to reach its full potential until Nara came into the picture. In holy matrimony and union, this couple have found in each other vehicles to take the boyfriend experiment into its final form by developing together something I'll dub the Tradwife experience. It's a clever marketing scheme that is also proving to be a bit of a deal with the devil, and ultimately a bit of a trad lie. And the facade? It's starting to crack. The Tradwife universe is a controversial internet-based social media movement, content style, and aesthetic in which the Tradwife experience becomes the main community-building component. At its core, Tradwife content romanticizes traditional gender roles, showcasing women who embrace homemaking, child-rearing, and a more submissive role in their very heterosexual marriages. The lifestyle is often presented with cottagecore-inspired visuals reminiscent of the 1950s American household ideals. Think rural landscapes, vintage dresses, pink curls, freshly baked goods, and smiling children who never cry. The Tradwife universe is comprised of a constellation of creators, which include influencers like Lydia Millen, Hannah Nealman of Ballerina Farm, Estee Williams, Gwen Swinnerton, Jasmine Dark, Abby Roth, and now Nara Smith. As a social media trend, Tradwife content has gained substantial traction online. In April 2024, the Tradwife hashtag got something like 1.1 billion views, okay? It's huge. And while Tradwives do exist on a spectrum from seemingly benign and even charming, like Nara Smith, to more extreme, like Estee Williams, smart people have started to argue that Tradwife content is dangerous because of how it acts as a gateway to political radicalization and religious extremism. They argue that Tradwife content is similar to how edgy meme culture led young men down the incel/red pill pipeline. Pump the bass, let's break it down. Political radicalization. The meta allegation/concern right now is that far-right groups and authoritarian kinked individuals are weaponizing Tradwife-style content to market a lifestyle and set of values that ultimately builds demand for policies dangerous to women, the LGBTQ community, and progressive values as a whole. The country of Hungary and the state of Florida are often cited as examples where traditionalist rhetoric and everyday mass media has led to the popularization of policies that allegedly are racist, homophobic, and undermine women's rights under the guise of promoting traditionalist family values. Allegedly, here's some data. A 2024 Media Matters study found that interacting with Tradwife content on TikTok often led users down pipelines of far-right conspiracy theories and increasingly radical content. An analysis of 327 recommended videos revealed that nearly one-third contained conspiracy theories or apocalyptic fear-mongering, ranging from medical misinformation to anti-government content, with a significant portion promoting a general distrust of modern institutions. The study pointed to prominent Tradwife influencers like Jasmine Dennis and Estee Williams, who exemplified this by intertwining messages about self-sufficiency and distrust of government and modern medicine with their homemaking content. Dennis uses hashtags like hashtag conspiracy and hashtag off-grid to attract viewers interested in far-right ideologies. Similarly, Williams has used her platform to spread anti-trans bigotry and oppose women's education, framing these views as part of the Tradwife lifestyle. And if you consume Abby Roth's content, chances are you'll eventually be recommended to right-wing creators like Ben Shapiro, Russell Brand, Breitbart, and Turning Points USA. While Nara Smith's account is not mentioned in this study, I did my own research, and interacting with her content led to recommendations for right-wing creators like the comment section with Brett Cooper and Candace Owens. Now, it's important to note that Nara Smith's content does not overtly engage with these narratives and does make a concerted effort to be neutral and apolitical. The closest thing I could find to tinfoiler was her subtly criticizing dermatology for failing to cure her eczema and promoting naturopathy instead. However, you don't need to vocally engage with problematic views for people to think you're a problem, especially given the evidence at hand. Part of the growing issue people have with Nara Smith is that at least the other influencers are out in the open with their views and values. They may not get as many brand deals, but they own who they are. And that I can respect. But Nara Smith, in the face of evidence that her style of content may lead people down toxic rabbit holes, has chosen to remain silent, leading people to suspect that her alleged apoliticism might be nothing more than a facade. Because what's the saying? If you're silent in the face of things like injustice or oppression, you might be secretly complicit. That part. So what people really want is for Nara to use her big girl voice, even if it's in the ASMR tone, and just come out of the closet so people know exactly what they're buying into. A cannoli with ricotta is not the same as a cannoli with mascarpone, okay? A latte is not the same as a cappuccino. I'd like to know what I'm buying. Religious extremism. Religious extremism is another major point of contention for Mademoiselle Nerita Smithsonian. Critics accuse Nara Smith of being part of an ecosystem of Tradwife creators with an evil agenda to convert the masses to America's most hated religion after Islam. Mormonism. It's a paranoia that unfortunately is rooted in reality because of the direct historical relationship mommy blogging has had with Mormonism and its use as a tool of recruitment. The Tradwife movement can be traced all the way back to the early 2000s mommy blogging space. In the early 2000s, women began sharing their experiences of motherhood, home management, and DIY projects online. These blogs often highlighted the challenges of homemaking and parenting. It provided a much-needed community for mothers to share advice and stories. Mormon women women were amongst the earliest and most influential mommy bloggers and have historically used blogging as a tool for advocacy and recruitment, with significant support from the church. Nara's conversion to the religion, her husband, Lucky Blue Smith, is Mormon, has thus fueled renewed suspicions about her content fitting into that ecosystem. And in America, people really don't like that ecosystem. Mormonism in American popular culture is still viewed as some weird cult of polygamous PDF files. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But there's literally no evidence of Nara Smith having some evil Mormon agenda. Nara's content does sometimes reference the Book of Mormon, scripture, and journaling, okay? But so do many influencers with their respective religions. So my thing is, I wonder if Nara had a more acceptable religion, like Catholic or Baptist, if we'd be collectively engaged in this kind of panic about her intentions. Nara has gone on record claiming that she's not a hardcore Mormon and is still figuring out her relationship with God. However, critics argue that just because she isn't actively proselytizing doesn't mean her content isn't useful to a broader Mormon expansion plan, and thus is still a problem. The idea is that her content might create curiosity, potentially leading people to believe that her religion is part of the recipe to a perfect life, and then convert, which has traditionally been part of the Mormon sales funnel. Not gonna lie. I did my research. I'm not gonna lie. Wow. This Charlotte DeWitt set is like insane. Charlotte DeWitt at Ultra 2023. That's what I'm listening to right now as I'm recording this video. Anti-feminism / coercive choice. By far, the biggest problem people have with Tradwife content is its positioning against feminist and progressive ideals, making it appear like a dangerously regressive force. However, followers of the Tradwife movement often frame their lifestyles as an expression of feminism, notably what's called choice feminism. Shout out to Aiden K. Remember the joke? If I was a rapper, my nickname would be Choices. They argue that domestic labor and nurturing roles are essential to our world and that women should not be shamed for prioritizing their families and homes. They claim that the conscious choice of doing so, like Nara Smith has, is inherently feminista. So back the off. Back off. However, critics consider that perspective to be problematic when considering the broader context of gender equality. People who dislike Tradwives argue that the concept of choice is complicated when societal pressures and patriarchal structures limit the options available to women. In the eyes of some feminists, choice feminism can sometimes be seen as a compromise with the patriarchy rather than a true exercise of free choice. The idea being that first-wave feminists fought for economic independence, the recognition of domestic labor, and the ability for women to leave unhealthy relationships. And opting into the Tradwife lifestyle can make achieving all those things difficult. Recent bombshell exposés have revealed that some Tradwife influencers like Ballerina Farm may be prisoners in their own marriages, leading to concerns for their safety and well-being. In response to this fear, Nara Smith has started including disclaimers in her videos, emphasizing that she enjoys cooking and caring for her family and is not forced to do so. She presents this as her love language, a way of expressing affection through acts of service. However, the feministas argue that the notion of love languages and the concept of care are often co-opted by capitalist structures to extract unpaid labor from women, which is again a problem. And so, by framing her domestic work as an expression of love, Smith reinforces the idea that women's labor in the home should be given freely and joyfully, regardless of the demands or pressures involved. So I'll let the debate lords debate, okay? From my perspective, what the people are really getting at is the concept of transparency. They want transparency from Nara Smith, and they are not getting it. Whatever life you choose, whether it's a traditional stay-at-home mom situation or a high-flying boss career, be real and be open with your audience about the implications, positive or negative, of that life. And given the cracks creators have started to identify in her facade, critics are also starting to think it's quite ironic that while she's out here providing disclaimers, she's opting out of providing her audience with the most important disclaimer of all, that Nara Aziza Smith isn't really a Tradwife at all, and that her whole shtick might be a trad lie.
So you mean to tell me that Nara Smith, now 22, actually got married to her husband Lucky when she was 19. Now he's 25. Now they have 3 kids in that time frame. She's making gum from scratch. She's doing all the things. She's an influencer. She's a model. She's a mother. And this is how she looks like weeks after giving birth. What have I been doing with my life?
And my answer to that girl would be, nothing's wrong with you, honey, because that's not really her life. As Nara Smith's popularity surged, curiosity turned into scrutiny and eventually a mutiny. For Nara, things really started to unravel when people began to understand that her picture-perfect life didn't quite add up. It's a skepticism that started with the kids and intricate cooking routines, and today extends to the whole Hollywood production. Nara Smith's content, especially her cooking videos, struck a chord with many because they offered solutions to everyday problems. In a world where figuring out what to eat, shopping for ingredients, and cooking can sometimes feel like a monumental task, cooking content and online recipes are a godsend. I like to cook, and that's where I get most of my recipes. This is especially true with recipes showcasing creators like Nara or Ballerina Farm making foods from scratch. Research has shown that many processed foods contain harmful additives, pesticides, and chemicals. It should be criminal, but unfortunately it's just America, so the onus is on us to not eat stuff that will kill us because the FDA ain't got your back like that. So as consumers are becoming increasingly aware of the food industry's negligence, creators like Nara Smith or Ballerina Farm have become very attractive. However, the logical next step as a fan would be to try and recreate the dishes at home. And this is where part of the illusion started to crack. Unlike many traditional food bloggers, influencers like Nara Smith weren't providing their audience with hard facts about the cooking process. Notably, how long does it take to make this, which is an important factor to consider before you embark on any cooking project. So people had no choice but to reverse engineer the process themselves, and in doing so began to realize that if 4 + 4 = 8, one thing is for sure, those kids did not.
Backstage before pouring it out and letting it cool.
Her family must have died, went back to heaven, and came back 3 times before she was done making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from scratch. Savvy internet sleuths concluded that many of Nara's meals could take hours, if not days, to prepare. And most non-AI generated people juggling jobs and families barely have an hour to cook dinner a day. So how the heck were they supposed to do all that? And most importantly, how the heck was she supposed to do that with a mansion to upkeep, 3 kids under 3, and a fussy husband? It was sus. Next, internet sleuths turned their attention to the products and ingredients she was using. Also sus. When people started to calculate the cost of replicating some of her recipes, for example, the Wagyu beef meal, they quickly found that it was equivalent to an entire weekly grocery budget. As my editor Travis said, like in the case of Ballerina Farm, it's like, do you not know how expensive it is to pasteurize your own milk? Like, first of all, you need a whole cow, okay? Then you need the barn. Then you need time to pump it. As Isis MUIA said, do we all have the same 24 hours? Because I don't know about you, but I need to clock in. Then came the next crack. It was not just the cost of the food that was sus. It was the cost of everything that was sus. As people noted with Ballerina Farm, is that a $30,000 stove? A $100,000 barn? A JetBlue Air money trust fund? One viral TikTok video broke down the cost of Nara Smith's wardrobe and home decor alone and revealed that just styling herself for a short video could run into the thousands of dollars.
Wear a full Chanel fit to make Nutella from scratch? Because Nara Smith just did. Let's talk about it. The Chanel Pre-Fall 2024 look, with the tee alone costing over $3,000, is one of many of Nara's iconic fits that she wears to make her cooking from scratch videos.
And I was like, 3,000 pesos? And it's like, no, 3,000 like USD.
Not only does she make bubblegum, ketchup, and cereal from scratch, always using designer Gustav Westman homeware, she does it all in a full designer fit. Some major looks include the $350 sleeper dress, which she wore to make French toast, the $2,990 Adate dress she wore to make cough drops, and this $895 Christopher Esper dress as the banana bread outfit of choice. Although ridiculously entertaining, we can't help but wonder, is she for real?
Exactly. The evidence became overwhelming. People like Nara Smith and Ballerina Farm weren't just alleged homemakers. They were rich homemakers, rich enough to afford a lifestyle far beyond the reach of most of her audience. This is Nara's facade, and this is a rock. And here's the thing, like if we take Ballerina Farm as an example, even if your does live on a farm, I am willing to bet you don't live on a farm like that. You do not live on a farm like that. Even if women wanted to live like Nara, and even if their life was allegedly real for them, to the masses, it will forever remain an unattainable, unrealistic, impossible fantasy. And I'm willing to bet that many of their followers may have wished they didn't invest themselves so deeply in the illusion before realizing that. This realization, in my opinion, gives way to the foundational lie of tradwifery, that none of them share transparently. What you see on camera is something that is not accessible to you. Even if this is your choice and you want this for yourself, you can't have it. Why? Because you're likely not as hot and very poor. Then came the next red flag, the production quality of Nara's videos. Okay, they wanna get put down. Give me a second. In a TikTok video posted in August of 2023, where she answers the question, what does she do for work? Nara Smith told her audience, quote, "I'm a full-time mom and I model." So to me, and to many people, that sounded something like I'm a housewife first and I do a little bit of modeling on the side. But as people started to scrutinize the production behind her videos, we're talking like looking at the volume of videos she puts out, the quality of the production, the number of sponsored posts, etc., the resounding sentiment became, why the you lying? Why the you lying? The evidence started to point in the direction that Nara Smith wasn't a traditional stay-at-home mom at all. That in fact, Nara Smith was a whole working woman who was running a whole business. And if mom is busy being a boss, who is doing the actual homemaking? The conclusion? Likely not Nara Smith. And as Better Be Company observed, Nara Smith was nothing more than a businesswoman engaged in a fictionalized performance that sees her masquerading as a tradwife. But the next logical question would be, but why? The answer? Because it's a fictionalized performance that's likely making her filthy rich. On TikTok, creators and analysts attempted to calculate her earnings, and this is what they found. According to Parade.com, as part of their creator program, TikTok pays roughly around 50 cents to $1 per 1,000 views. Using an average estimate, it was calculated that Nara made approximately $200,000 in March of 2024 alone from her TikTok videos, not factoring in sponsored posts. Using a different RPM, estimates from another creator suggested that she made about $176,000 in February of 2024 alone. And that is, as I said, not even factoring in sponsorship deals, which is where she's likely making most of her money. It's impossible for me to know just how much Nara Smith is charging for sponsored posts. If anybody has any idea, please drop that info in the comment section. But what we do know is that Nara Smith has collaborated with dozens of brands, and as time goes on, those brands are increasingly entering into the super prime luxury market. In 2023 and 2024 alone, based on what I found, Nara Smith has partnered with YSL Beauty, Calvin Klein, Farfetch, Revolve, Function Beauty, Hourglass, Everlane, Lola V, Forward, Dolce & Gabbana, Marc Jacobs, Clarins, Tory Burch, MAC Cosmetics, Adanola, Brilliant Earth, Aritzia, Coterie, Seed, and Liquid IV, to name just a few. And for an influencer her size, what we call a mega influencer, I think it's entirely possible that Nara Smith in 2023 and now in 2024 has made a few $1 million off of sponsored content, which is really important within the context of the male modeling industry that her husband Lucky Blue Smith is active in. Male modeling is one of the few industries where men get paid routinely less than women. In 2013, the world's highest earning female model, Gisele Bündchen, made $42 million, while the combined earnings of the top 10 highest earning male models totaled only $8 million. And when you take into consideration that I don't think Lucky Blue Smith is one of the top 10 highest earning male models in the world, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Nara Smith might actually be the primary breadwinner in her family. The irony of it all, or like the meme says, the dichotomy of it all. Nara Smith, a supposed tradwife, is the literal exemplification of feminist progress. A woman who earns her own money while being able to care for her family and has the financial independence to leave the marriage if necessary. That's literally core goals feminism. And if we take SideQuest Ballerina Farm as an example, she's not just a stay-at-home mom engaged in an insignificant side hustle. This woman is co-COO, as she describes it, of a significant corporate enterprise with her husband that currently manages over 40 employees. What's really funny is that in response to the growing discourse, Nara recently made a video acknowledging that she was a working mom, but she denied having a production team or outside help, which makes the whole thing even harder to believe. The math ain't mathing. Nara Smith's scale of production and labor-intensive family life is simply too large for it to be a solo operation. Those brand deals, they need negotiating, contracts, going back and forth by email, Zoom meetings. And how are you doing all that if the sandwich you just made took you 5 hours? Which leads me to my next question. If you are running a business and getting domestic help, fine. I won't judge you. I'm not judging you. But why is you owning up to it like pulling teeth out of a toddler? Yes. Probably because it would expose the increasingly probable reality that Nara Smith's empire might be built on a trad lie, where ultimately money is the motive. The picture that has started coming into focus is that Nara Smith's digital life is not only not a realistic depiction of traditional homemaking, it's also a meticulously curated performance that uses the allure of a bygone era to build this woman a lucrative career that gives her and people like her the freedom to walk away at any time if Prince Charming turns out to be a monster. And while Nara Smith continues to reap the benefits that comes with lacking transparency and staying silent, her audience is at best left aspiring to an unattainable fantasy, or at worst being pushed down allegedly dangerous pipelines of political and religious radicalization. And whilst it is true that many viewers lack the media literacy to understand that what they're seeing is fiction, many do understand the phony nature of the movie they're watching, and yet they can't keep their eyes off of her. As the suspense builds for Nara to finally break the fourth wall and get real, she has people like me left wondering why she's still so popular. And what my research has led me to learn is that the appeal of someone like Nara Smith is similar to the appeal of drug abuse. In a f***ed up world, people will often turn to toxic substances for peace and comfort. And peace and comfort is precisely what someone like Nara Smith is providing to a generation the world has failed. A generation that's in the middle of a very scary and very real existential crisis. Nara Smith and the Tradwife influencer movement's popularity amongst Gen Z is perplexing, especially given Gen Z's reputation as one of the most progressive generations living. But despite being celebrated for their progressive views, a closer look at Gen Z reveals a complex landscape that we don't talk enough about. According to a study by Big Eye, half of Gen Z believes traditional gender roles are outdated. Pew Research also found that 61% of Gen Z intended to vote for the Democratic Party in the 2020 election, and about half support LGBTQ+ rights, interracial marriage, and all the brat things. Even conservative members of Gen Z are generally more progressive than their older counterparts. So how do we reconcile those facts with the other fact that Gen Z is literally fueling the rise of said regressive social media movements? Part of the story is that despite the media framing studies on Gen Z's progressivism positively, as I mentioned in my Inclusivity is a Scam video, we often fail to focus on the silent minority who disagree, and that always comes to bite us in the ass. Yes, it is true that around half of Gen Z believes traditional gender roles are outdated, but the other half doesn't entirely share that view. There exists a divide within the Gen Z generation that we don't talk enough about, and it's playing out right now IRL on the internet. However, the core issue is what I'll call the Gen Z existential panic. It's a problem that affects them all, regardless of political beliefs. According to politicalresearch.org, this is a existential panic that stems from A, the failures of girl boss feminism, B, Gen Z's inability to cope with an increasingly complicated world, and C, a profound fear of societal collapse. The early 2010s saw the rise of girl boss feminism, which sold women the lie that in part by going hard in their careers, they could have it all, including work-life balance. But unfortunately, this movement celebrated women's professional achievements while often neglecting the systemic barriers that hindered true equality. Gen Z watched their parents, particularly their mothers, attempt to balance demanding careers with family responsibilities and never getting the promised rewards. The reality within capitalism is that they continue to earn less money and see their contributions to the domestic sphere devalued. And it's a buzzkill. This disillusionment with the feasibility of achieving both professional success and personal fulfillment has also coincided with a renewed far-right campaign that exists since the 60s and 70s against feminism. This campaigning advocates for a return to the traditional nuclear family as the solution to social chaos, triggered by, of course, single women. Political Research Associates suggest that these factors have led to a generational attraction to regressive social media trends like the soft girl aesthetic, the stay-at-home girlfriend trend, cottagecore, and now the Tradwife movement. But it goes even deeper. While progressive strides in gender equality and LGBTQ plus rights have provided more freedom for people like me to live their truths out on Grindr, they have also complicated traditional social structures. And this increased complexity has outpaced society's ability to equip individuals with the tools needed to navigate it all in a healthy, not unhinged way. And this is especially evident in the mental health crisis grappling young men. I don't mean to be dramatic, but someone needs to really save our boys, because they are lost and they have no idea how to navigate a world in which they are seeing their male privilege being eroded before their eyes. And so, influencers like Andrew Tate and now Nara Smith exploit either aggressively or subtly this void by offering simplistic solutions or alluring aesthetics to complex social problems in an ugly world, by promoting regressive ideals under the guise of clarity and order. But hands down, the biggest contributing problem is that Gen Z is currently living in a world that they can't afford and that's literally falling apart. Political Research Associates refers to this as Gen Z's fear of collapse. Today, Homo sapiens are facing existential threats, which include but are not limited to mass displacement, economic depression, food scarcity, political upheaval/revolution, pandemics, war, and irreversible climate change. These fears are then compounded by the increasing inaccessibility of basic quality of life pillars like affordable housing and stable employment. And so, living in a perpetual state of uncertainty and instability has not only, no shade, traumatized Gen Z, but now also has them finding solace in either Tumblr-era indie sleaze debauchery, my life at the moment, or in the perceived stability, simplicity, and safety of a mythic past, like the one sold by Nara Smith. Influencers like Nara Smith or Ballerina Farm, with their emphasis on traditional gender roles and domestic life, are said to offer an appealing escape from the chaos of our present. And Gen Z is consuming their content for the same reasons addicts abuse drugs, just to cope. As one commenter wrote under one of Nara's posts, quote, "I want the peace that Nara Smith has. Don't we all? And until we provide the kids better prospects for the future and healthier and more accessible ways to navigate it, influencers like Nara Smith will continue to pop up as a drug of choice, ready to gently rock us to sleep and ease the pain. Even if we know that deep down inside that none of what we're consuming is real and ultimately could be lethal."